Joe, are we ready? John, your name's John, not Joe. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the Binghamton City Council, Binghamton City Work Session, Wednesday, 20 December, 6 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rosinetti. Present. Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman.
Present.
Councilman Burns.
Present.
Councilman Strawn.
Present.
Councilman Scanlon. And President Scringy.
Present.
That's 6 here, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have a quorum. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Rosinetti for the purposes of a motion.
President, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes from the December 6th, 2023 business meeting and December 14th, 2023 special business meeting.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilwoman Rosinetti, seconded by Councilman Burns. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Chair recognizes Madam Clerk for the purpose of a public hearing notice. Please.
We were originally supposed to have a public hearing tonight regarding RL 23-264. This meeting is actually going to be postponed. When we have a date to set it, we will set it into the paper and then we will have to reset the public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that is in relation to RL 23-264. At this time, we will move forward with public comment. Residents wishing to submit public comment may do so electronically by emailing their comments prior to 1 p.m. on the day of the meeting to clerk@cityofbinghamton.gov or in person during the meeting. One electronically was received, which I will read into the record. After anyone in person wishing to speak, anyone wishing to speak per City Charter, Chapter 26, you have 5 minutes. Please state your name and whether you work and or reside in the city of Binghamton. Evening, Councilman-elect. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good to see you, sir. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm Nate Hotchkiss. I live and work in the city of Binghamton. So congratulations to all of you on what I believe to be is your last business meeting. I have one request. So as you know, I've spent like a lot of time knocking doors, talking to a lot of people in District 4. So I'm pretty aware of the views of my constituency, and I think I would be very equipped to evaluate a few of the RLs that are currently on the agenda tonight. And they're all in my district, and I'm hoping that you are willing to either hold them over or vote them down so that myself and my new colleagues will have the opportunity to evaluate them come next year after we're sworn in. The first one is 23. Well, this is, yeah, RL 23-271. This is the Boscov's money, the $2.5 million of ARPA money. 11 Court Street is also on there. I think I'd like to take some time to review that with my colleagues. Another one is RL 23-277. This is more ARPA money for greater opportunities. There's a lot of different opinions in the neighborhood regarding greater opportunities in some of their developments, from both the tenants that occupy those things, but then the broader neighborhood. And I think I could represent those pretty well. And lastly, RL 23-274. This is about Country Town Exact Capital, the $3 million that are of ARPA money that is supposed to be allocated so that we can move forward with some of the renovation of that project. I would really appreciate the opportunity to evaluate some of these RLs and discuss them with my colleagues, and I hope you give me the chance to do that. So thanks, that's all.
Thank you, Councilman-elect. Appreciate you. And if there's anything you'd like to share with the body, please feel free to email it to me and I'll share it with everyone immediately. Thank you. Evening, ma'am. How are you?
Good evening.
Thank
I'm
you so
well.
much for joining us again. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Dr. Misty M. Kirby. I live, work, and volunteer here in Binghamton, which I have called home for 2 years, although I first moved to New York in 1999. When I first spoke in front of this body in February, I introduced myself and spoke of the difficulty that my family and I had when we moved to Binghamton in August of 2021. We had to find multiple short-term housing until we were able to close on our home on the south side after in November, 3 months after moving here. My partner and I are both highly educated, and we have been very motivated to get connected in our new home. Indeed, in a place that claims to want professionals to move into the area, people like us. However, when we do, we're treated unkindly and with suspicion. Constantly told the way that we do things around here without a thought for the possibility that there could be other ways of doing things. On that first occasion, when I introduced myself, I mentioned one unsafe morning in which our street, which is 3 blocks north of Conklin Avenue, was not plowed. Immediately after I spoke, the current council member for my district, Mr. Strawn, had already asked and been given information about where I live. After I spoke, Mr. Strawn attempted to overstate where I live by referring to it as the hilly area, as if I lived above Lookout and those very nice places, and not just a few blocks north of Conklin. I was creeped out by your actions. It was creepy that you knew where I lived by the time we were done with the meeting. And I didn't feel welcomed. Please don't gaslight your constituents. Further, last month when I spoke about the 14-minute special business meeting that you all had on the 23rd of October, when you ran through legislation to build a parking garage on Water Street for $26.5 million, which called for taking out bonds not to exceed $19.5 million, I pointed out a few things, like the high average in the United States for a parking garage being $12 million, with the high end being $20 million. Further, which I did not include, was a 304 spot garage located just over here at the intersection of Holly and Washington Streets that opened in January 2021, excuse me, and was built for a cost of $9.9 million. I went on to mention at least 6 errors in the full environmental assessment form that was submitted, as well as expressing shock and disbelief over the abysmally low architect firm fees. Less than $200,000 for a $26.5 million project. On the closing of my remarks, Dr. Scaringi questioned my sources, more gaslighting, because as I said, I do have a PhD. Well, I didn't say that. I said I was a doctor. We have all these other kinds of doctorates too. But I'm a PhD from the oldest public institution in this country. I don't speak to numbers unless I'm sure. My data was triangulated. So it's more gaslighting because, of course, the taxpaying public, we don't get to come back here and respond. This is not a debate, right? And you more grandiosely spoke of a bill that this body passed unanimously 2 years ago of $7 million in ARPA funds that will be used for this project. Information that was supposed to have some point. I missed it. How much do you all stand to gain when this project is completed? I look forward to continuing to speak truth to power because I am neither Team Republican nor Team Democrat. As you all end your terms, I'd like you to reflect on how you have helped the most disadvantaged in our community. I'd also like you to reflect on why you refuse to practice in more ethical ways by your refusal to vote for legislation
You have 1
to
minute.
compel you to disclose your financial matters. Why not? What are you hiding? What have you done to make Binghamton more perfect? What have you done to establish justice? I assure you that paying the police more overtime is not contributing to a more just Binghamton. The body here is by consent of the governed, us, and we are not pleased with your performance by virtue of us being equal and having the right to vote. It is our duty to alter it. I thank those who got out to vote in November. Because of their voice, the people in our city, the unconnected, may be able to experience a city that is more welcoming for all and not just for the fortunate few.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Evening, Madam Chair. How are you? Thank you for joining us. The floor is yours. Appreciate you. Madam Chair, my apology. I'll add you back time. Is the green light on the microphone on?
There we go.
Yeah, that one's a little,
Got it.
Madam Clerk, can you please add 30 seconds onto her time,
That,
please? No.
don't worry about it.
No, go ahead. Thank you.
I'm here tonight for a couple of reasons. So let me talk about your agenda first. This is crazy. I mean, always at the end of the year, there's a lot of last minute things that have to be handled and a lot of last minute things that have to be done. But wow, you guys have outdone yourself on this one. And it seems pretty patently obvious that this is an attempt to jam a lot of things through before a new council takes over in January. And after watching this council, some of you for the last 8 years, some of you for the last 4, I'm just going to ask that you please reevaluate the decision to go along with this. Just once, hold your heads up, think for yourselves, do what is best for the residents of the city of Binghamton. Do what they asked you to do. There's no reason that all of this American Rescue money needs to be allocated tonight. There's no reason whatsoever. And the residents made very clear that they wanted a different group of people to take over for some reason. They wanted a little more oversight. So in response to that, I would hope that you would all have the wherewithal and the dignity to let the voters' voices mean something. That's one. The other is the changing of the title from executive assistant to deputy mayor. I've been watching city politics for 20 years. And this deputy mayor thing has been a bone of contention for 20 years that I've been watching. There's never been a deputy mayor. Everyone who's ever been an executive assistant to the mayor has referred to themselves as a deputy mayor. Many of us take pleasure in correcting them every time they say it. So rather than just living with the title that is there, this body is trying to change, at the mayor's urging, I assume, the title to deputy mayor. There's an implication there. There's an implication that somehow this person fills in for the mayor, that somehow this is an elected position. It's not. And so rather than changing the title to fit the mayor's wishes so that he can have somebody when he's not around to step in his place, there is somebody. It's the president of city council. So there's no reason to do this. And I would urge you all to just, again, stand firm and do what's right. Vote your own consciences for a change. Councilman Scringy, the number of times I have watched meetings or come to meetings and seen you agree with speakers, heard you agree with speakers, and then vote absolutely the opposite of what you just said you agreed with has been so frustrating. This body has been so disappointing to watch, and it's not the first time I've said it. I've come here and I've said it before. I have never seen people who are as rubber stamping as this group has been. And so as you come to the end of your terms, you have one last night to think for yourselves, and one last night to do what the voters so clearly told you they want you to do, which is to do your jobs, which is oversight. Now, before I go, I'm sorry that Councilwoman Riley isn't here, but to Councilwoman Friedman and Councilman Burns, I just want to say, on behalf of the residents of Binghamton, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. And it's been embarrassing to watch how disrespectfully some of you have been treated, from having your questions shut down and encouraged.
You have 1 minute.
Councilman Scanlon, I remember the Atta girl, Sophia, from having the mayor not tell you he was on a Zoom meeting and then speaking in in a very disrespectful way about one of your colleagues, to having questions ignored, having mics shut off, having motions ignored. It's, again, 20 years, never saw anything like it. And when I served on city council, let's face it, I served with some of the biggest characters that this city council has ever known. And I never experienced that level of disrespect, and I never saw it. So I want to thank Councilwoman Friedman, Councilwoman Riley, Councilman Burns. You stuck it out. You held your heads high. You should be very proud of your service. To everyone else, thank you for your service and good luck in your future endeavors. I think the residents will be well served come January. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Evening, sir. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm well. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Abdelazim, live in Binghamton. Your optimism, Terry. I know that's not going to happen, but it doesn't matter. You know what the Mexico City policy is? I'm sure you might know, given it's related to federal funding for foreign NGOs that are involved somehow in any kind of abortion services. Every time there's a Republican president, it's enforced. Every time there's a Democratic president, it's rescinded. Then it's enforced, then it's rescinded. The next city council has the power and the authority to rescind whatever you do tonight. So have at it. Have at it. And no matter how the Corp Council's office, good luck with your future work, Ryan. I mean that. But whoever sits there and the mayor try to diminish or obfuscate the power that this new supermajority legislative body has, there will be many of us there that will affirm their authority, and they will finally bring some accountability, some responsibility, and transparency to this body and to the city hall. So rather than raising your head up high and doing the right thing, because I know 4 of you are not capable of that. I've seen it 4 years in a row. I just want you to explain some things. Because as Terry said, there is a ton of legislation being considered here that has incredibly high volume of dollars, public tax dollars, and implications, and there is no detail whatsoever. So it seems like there is a final number on the joint sewage treatment plant cost over $360 million. When all is said and done, when all the FEMA, when all the settlements, I don't know. It looks that way, but I'd sure appreciate if any council member, based on your last conversation, can just share more information about what this legislation actually means. How much did we receive in settlement? How much did we actually try to secure? Because you could say we got 5 million, but if we were suing for 100 million and we got 5, then it's not that much of a success. But there's no clarity as to the financial outcomes of the joint sewage treatment plant. The Boscovs, 2.5 million. There used to be an agreement that BLDC would monitor whether or not Boscovs is making their financial commitment to the store. Is there an agreement that spells out how the BLDC will do that? Do any of you have an agreement? If you don't, then that's bad on you. We've talked here before about the BMET Stadium, and you guys were all remiss. Yeah, it wasn't a great deal. It was a bad negotiated deal, but this is what we have. Well, you actually have power to determine what is negotiated. And I bet some of you haven't even seen an agreement. There's probably no detail whatsoever. It looks like you're pulling 750,000 out of the general fund to buy a bunch of properties. There is not an attachment. Like, how do you pass a bill of $750,000 that the administration can buy properties, but you don't identify what those properties are? I understand this is from the Ansroot settlement. So glad that the taxpayers can pay him full market value for his terrible portfolio, or at least a bunch of it, but I don't know which properties they are. I don't know if these are all demo candidates. It's still going to be hundreds of thousands that we're going to be on the hook later. But shouldn't you at least add an attachment that has the exact parcel addresses? If this is pursuant to a court agreement, shouldn't we know what those details are? If a council member can help elucidate what those are, that'd be great. 3 million for exact capital. This is just clearly just trying to ram this through before the end of the year. I wouldn't give the mayor authority to enter into any agreement because that was on
You
the
have 1 minute.
condition that they receive state funding. Just because they get a letter, they provided you a letter that says they're working with the state on closing a loan, does not provide, I think, confidence that that's actually happening. And they admit it's not going to happen till July. So why the 3 million for town and country? I know that after a lot of antagonizing down here, you finally got a scope of work for the 4+ million in flood repair damages, finally, right? But you have no idea what's happening to town and country, and you're just throwing $3 million at a developer that says they're going to get a loan with the state. Chamber of Commerce, there was a lot of talk about how we want to continue the great momentum and success and give them 150,000. Can anyone share what they did? Because I listened to work sessions and there was no mention as to what they did. Like, what are they doing for 150,000? And then the greater opportunities for Broome. You know, when a Black-led organization asked for $1.25 million to repair a 6-unit building that is in a great neighborhood, rich with amenities, on a public transit line, within a grocery stores, one of our crown jewel parks,
Your 5 minutes is up.
they were met with nothing but resistance. But tonight, because greater opportunities, the good old boys, they're coming in and they're great. But you're just handing 1.25 million for a 6-unit property and then another 1.25 million for a 6-unit property. That is a perfect example of white gatekeepers of resources. Don't tell me you appreciate me when I walk away from here, because it's just empty rhetoric.
Thank you very much. But I do appreciate you. Or anyone else that would like to speak for public comment? I'll read into the record what we received from, forgive me if I mispronounce, Carrie Blabik Myers. Hello, I would like this note forwarded to those who will be attending the next appropriate meeting agendas, please, as recommended to me by my West Side representative, Councilwoman Angela Riley. I have sent a few notes and made a few calls regarding amicus signs throughout the West Side. We love students and we love that they have clean, safe housing, but naming residences, Red Zeppelin, quotes, Martha's Vineyard, quotes, MGM Grand, quotes, etc., and placing a branded sign in the eaves of each house in addition to the existing A branding is inappropriate for residential streets. When I brought this subject up to Mr. Martinez and Mr. Buell in zoning, Mr. Buell responded and cited the following reasons that my point, forgive me, of concern was invalid back in September 2023. The Abel Bennett Tract is recognized on the federal level. I do not believe that the local CAUD board has any jurisdiction in that area of the city. There are a few general guidelines for signs in a residential district. However, none of those guidelines apply in these cases, as their signs are not considered as advertisement. They are more decorative in nature. We certainly are not encouraging these types of signs, but have no legal standing to prevent them under the current zoning ordinance. I do know that Amicus has been adorning their houses with the A sign, as well as naming their properties for around a year. There are a few problems with this response with zoning, but mainly point 2 is false. Referring to Amicus branded signage as, quote, decorative in nature is incorrect. Amicus green and gold signs are part of their commercial branding that is directly correlated to their nationally branded website and local advertising campaigns. Thank you for your work and bringing this issue to your next agenda. Best regards, Ms. Carrie Blabik Myers. Thank you, Ms. Myers. Anyone else that would wish to speak? All right, seeing none, we will move forward with first read legislation. And we'll begin with the preferred agenda. Madam Clerk. Councilwoman Freeman, my apologies.
Thank you, President Scringy. There are a couple of pieces of legislation I would like to pull from the preferred agenda.
Thank you for
please.
that. My apologies. Yes. Are there any requests for legislation that any council members would like to remove? Councilwoman Freeman, my apologies.
Thank you. I would like to pull introductory ordinance 23-170 and introductory resolution 23-96, please.
Councilwoman, my apologies. Can you read those one more time, please?
Yes, I would like to please pull introductory ordinance 23-170 and introductory resolution 23-96, please.
$170 and $96. Thank you. Are there any others? Thank you, Councilwoman. Madam Clerk.
First is introductory ordinance 23-159 considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund budget for the police department for various over budget line items.
Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Next is introductory ordinance 23-161 considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund budget for the fire department for various over budget line items.
Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Next is introductory ordinance 23-163 considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund budget for the Parks and Rec department for year-end extra week of payroll accrual.
Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Next is introductory ordinance 23-165 considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2023 water and sewer fund budget for additional postage, overtime, and electricity expenses.
Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Next is introductory ordinance 23-167 considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2023 planning and zoning budget for office supply costs.
Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Next is introductory ordinance 23-168 considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2023 Housing and Urban Development Administration and housing budget for legal ads and advertising expenses.
Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Next is introductory ordinance 23-169 considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2023 golf fund budget for various over budget line item expenses.
Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Next is introductory ordinance 23-183 considered in finance. An ordinance to amend the 2023 refuge fund budget to cover retirement and fuel expenses and tipping fees.
Discussion. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the preferred agenda as amended.
So moved.
Motion by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilwoman Rezanetti. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rezanetti. Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
And President Scringy.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First read legislation on the amended preferred agenda passes. We'll move forward with first read for the non-preferred agenda. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory 2358.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-158, an ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund budget for increased electricity and streetlight expense.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motioned by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilman Strawn. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rezanetti.
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
President Scringy.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-158 passes. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding 23-160.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-160, an ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund budget for the personnel department for various over budget line items.
Do I have a second? Motioned by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Rezanetti. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Ressenetti. Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
President Scringy.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-160 passes. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Friedman for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23.
Thank you, President Scurngey. I ask for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 23-162, an ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund budget for the Economic Development Department to account for year-end extra week of payroll accrual.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Freeman, seconded by Councilman Strawn. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called? Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Ressenetti.
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
And President Scringy.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-162 passes. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Friedman for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-164.
Thank you, President Scurngey. I ask for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 23-164, an ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund budget to cover a workers' compensation buyout.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilwoman Ressenetti. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called? The question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Ressenetti. Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-164 passes. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-171.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-171, an ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund budget for various over budget line items at year end.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Ressenetti. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Ressenetti. Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon. President Scringy.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-171 passes. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-172.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-172, an ordinance to amend the 2023 ramp fund budget for various over budget line items at year end.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Ressenetti. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Ressenetti. Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
And President Scringy.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-172 passes. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Friedman for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-173.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-173, an ordinance to amend the 2023 Department of Public Works budget for responsibility adjustments.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilwoman Ressenetti. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Ressenetti. Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
President Scringy.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-173 passes. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-174.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-174, an ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund budget to allocate American Rescue Plan Act funds for marketing, promotions, and tourism in the city.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Ressenetti. Discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scurngey. Like some of the speakers have mentioned, I think it's no surprise to anyone that I also was planning to comment on the amount of ARPA money that is being asked to be allocated. Not that I have a particular issue with this program, and in fact, I've heard that it was successful, but just the fact that yeah, this is part of the ARPA package, and I don't think it is a mystery as to why there is so much ARPA money here. And I agree with Councilman-elect Nate Hotchkiss in that the incoming council they have their fingers on the pulse of what their future constituents want. I've said this a lot, that I think that city council ought to be a full-time job. There's certainly 40 hours a week worth to do. And part of what I wish I could have done is canvass my neighborhood more regularly, but it's just not realistic to do that, at least for me working full-time. So all of that is to say, I would like to make a motion to hold this over so the new council can consider.
Do I have a second?
Mr. President, yeah, I agree
Councilman
that,
Burt.
I think this money is set aside for tourism and marketing, and the next city council might have their own ideas about tourism and marketing, and they should have a say in this. So I will second that, pulling that over.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Councilman. Introductory ordinance 23-174 is held over. Motioned by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilman Burns. Thank you both. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-175.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-175, an ordinance to amend the 2023 capital fund budget to close account lines no longer active.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Resonetti. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Resonetti. Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
All right,
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
And President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-175 passes. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Friedman for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-176.
Thank you, President Scringy. I ask for unanimous consideration for introductory ordinance 23-176, an ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund budget to use lost revenue funds per the American Rescue Plan Act for rehabilitation of 11 Court Street.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. My apologies. Discussion. Councilwoman Friedman.
Thank you, President Scringy. So I'm not going to repeat everything that I just said, but this is one of the larger asks. And so I did the math. I added up all of the ARPA money that's being asked to being proposed to be allocated. There's $8.15 million of ARPA money in this packet alone. That's 17% of the entire ARPA reward. This project, it's important. It's a historical building. I'm not against the project, but to allocate this much money and, especially in such a chunk, and I wish Councilwoman Riley was here so I could play the tape of her saying, roll the tapes, because we just tend to repeat things that we say a lot. That we tend to put the cart before the horse when it comes to announcements of projects like these. And what I mean by that is there was a large press conference and, this announcement before the funding was actually allocated. And I don't want to be pressured into hurrying up and allocating this money just because there was already an announcement that it was going to happen. So like the other ARPA money, I am going to make a motion to hold this over so the new incoming council is able to consider it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Is there a second?
second.
Motion by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilman Burns. introductory ordinance 23-176 is held over. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-177.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-177, an ordinance to amend the 2023 capital fund budget to close account line is no longer active.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Friedman. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Ressenetti. Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
President Scringy.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-177 passes. Chair recognizes Councilman Strawn for the purposes of a motion concerning introductory ordinance 23-178.
Mr. President, I ask council for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 23-178. Ordinance to amend the city charter, chapter 124, section 39, and chapter 265, section 2, to update the title executive assistant to the mayor to deputy mayor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motioned by Councilman Strawn, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. Council discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scringy. I just wanted to speak to the point that Democratic Chair Terry Rennia made, that just to reiterate the explanation that was given to us, because the title was changed in the budget, it now has to be changed in the code in order for payroll. I see you shaking your head for this. So it was changed in the budget. So I don't know. I see you shaking your head, but I'm just, I wanted to say on the record, the explanation that was given to us. So that's, yeah, as far as we're aware, that's what we were told. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Burns.
Yes. I know a little bit about the history of people calling themselves the executive assistant to the mayor or deputy mayor. I know Mayor Kramer's executive assistant is the executive assistant. And I know that because I see old photographs from the newspapers and John Burns always called himself the executive assistant to the mayor. That takes me to Matt Ryan's executive assistant, who, darn it, he and Matt call themselves the deputy mayor. So I'm going to go with Matt Ryan and his deputy mayor and go along with this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Burns. Councilwoman Ressenetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Additionally, I would like to add to what Councilman Burns just said. I don't remember, my fault, it's not going back that far, when the last time was when we had,
Councilwoman, my apologies.
when the last time was
Thank you.
when we had a female deputy mayor. And, you know, we talked about this when Deputy Mayor Megan Hyman came downstairs the one time when we had that discussion. And to me, it is, I think we all kind of agreed that when we're talking about this assistant thing, it has this connotation that might be less than. I don't know that it is or isn't, but in any attempt that we can take or any steps that we can make to certainly support women and with their titles and how they are viewed, you know, I was actually, you know, one of those that sort of brought that up, and and that's the reason why I'm going to support this.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ressenetti. Is there any other discussion? I'll simply add to the discussion. I know there's been a lot of back and forth as it relates to past individuals who held this role. I will also put on the record, I agree with Madam Chair. One of the things that I had mentioned directly to the mayor was that titles in and of themselves, they are what they are, and whatever. Quite frankly, that doesn't bother me. My concern was, as was correctly brought up during public comment, as it relates to the city charter, that in the case or in the situation where it should arise, it is important to understand that, I guess I can say from a practical standpoint of what the term deputy infers. I would agree with that. I think you're 100% correct about that, Madam Chair. That it's almost kind of like a number two or a step-in position. And my concern was to ensure that the way it is laid out in the city charter, I know Councilman Burns, you and I got to talk about this a little while back as well, as it relates to making sure that that wasn't unchanged. That my concern was that whoever holds this chair is an elected official, and that person should be the acting mayor should that arise. And if that was proposed to be changed, that this was an ordinance that I would not support. But that delineation has not changed. So that doesn't, the title in and of itself doesn't bother me. But on the practical level, I agree 100%, and that is correct. So I will add that. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Resaletti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-178 passes. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Friedman for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-179.
Thank you, President Scaringi. I ask for your unanimous consideration for introductory ordinance 23-179, an ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund budget to accept the 4th round of the New York State Healthcare Workers Bonus for personal services for the fire department.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question, Mr. President.
The question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Resaletti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
President Scringy.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-179 passes. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-180.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-180. An ordinance to amend the 2023 joint sewer project budget for the settlement of lawsuit and to create a new budget line for payment.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Rezanetti. My apologies. Discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scaringi. I think I have to be careful with what I say because I know some of this is confidential, but I did want to say that one thing that one of my concerns was assuaged with regarding this legislation, that this should not result in any change to the ratepayers and no increase in the bond. I hope I'm allowed to say that on the record. Okay, great. So that's why I do feel comfortable supporting this. I wanted to make sure that this wouldn't cost the city any more money to the ratepayers. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rezanetti. Is there any other discussion?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rezanetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
And President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-180 passes. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Friedman for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-181.
Thank you, President Scaringi. I ask for unanimous consideration for introductory ordinance 23-181, an ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund and capital budgets for the purchase of various properties.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. Discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scringy. I have a question about this, actually, as was brought up by one of the speakers. I'm wondering if we, and I know this is time sensitive, let me preface by saying that. I'm wondering if we couldn't include a list of the properties for consideration for purchase. Okay. Oh, that would be great. I
Could you
think.
please read the properties into the record, please?
Thank you.
Microphone, my apologies.
Let me start
Please,
from the top again.
go ahead, please.
2 Fayette, 3 Carey Street, 3 Fayette Street, 4.5 Fayette, 5 Sturgis Street, 9 Mill Street, 12 Rutherford Street, 22 Clark Street, 30 Thorpe Street, 31 Travis Street, 32 Carroll Street, 41 Clinton Street, 42 Fayette Street, 43.5 Clinton Street, 114 Henry, 122 Henry, 124 Henry, 155 Murray Street, 181 Hawley Street, 181 Hawley Street, 193 Matthew Street, 206 Henry Street, 26.5 Henry Street, 208 Henry Street, 210 Henry Street, and 312 Main Street.
Thank you, Corp Counsel. Did you?
Thank you for doing that. In the interest of transparency, I
No,
do
no, no.
appreciate that.
You beat me to it. Good. No, you're good. Corp Counsel, did you have something you wanted to add on that or?
No, but we
Okay.
can provide that list to the,
Yeah, I was gonna wait. You know what? Was that everything you had?
that's everything I had.
Okay. Councilwoman Freeman, please continue. My apologies. If you had any further comments, I'm sorry.
I am finished with my comment.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Burns. I'll
Thank
say
you,
it
Mr.
after.
President.
Thank you.
In regards to this RL, these properties, it's much better that we are getting them as opposed to them going for auction. Because the way that the auctions are run, it can go just in the hands of some other bad player. And nothing improves for the city of Binghamton. The properties, the prices were done by a third party assigned by the judge to give what these values are to these properties. And also, we aren't giving the money to Azuru. Now, as a we received this order from the court and mayor passed it on to us. And it is and the mayor put it in an email to us. I can give somebody the PDF if they want from the court, but this is of note on the bottom of page 9. It explains that due to pending judgments and garnishments against Mr. Azarut, the city will not directly pay him for the properties, but rather establish an account in escrow and await any Supreme Court orders directing the disbursement of funds. So, we're trying to control this as much as possible. And also, I'm confident in the next city council coming in because once we own the property, when it comes to selling the property, you need 6 votes to sell. So the city council is going to have complete control over who we sell these properties. It would make sure that it's helping the problems that we have with housing here in the city. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Burns. Yeah, I would agree with that, Councilman Burns, and just to add on to that, there's also, I know particularly like Clinton Street, for example, there's a number of these properties that are just so beyond anything that, I would imagine even with some of these projects, the city potentially would end up in a situation in which, demolition costs might even be cheaper than anything rehabilitative. So I concur 100%. Councilman Strong.
I just wanted to mention that I agree with Councilman Burns, and my concern was, I think that the dollar amount has been confirmed by a third party, but that the money was, my understanding, it'll be held in escrow.
Yeah.
And will not directly, so that piece, I don't know what happens at that point, but my guess is that various people that are owed money for various reasons will, get some restitution in that area. I don't know how it all works, and I'm not privy to that, but that very little, if any, money will most likely end up in his hands.
Thank you, Councilman. So question called. Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rosanetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley is absent, Councilmember Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-181 passes. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of motion concerning introductory ordinance 23-182.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-182. An ordinance to amend the 2023 Binghamton Johnson City Joint Sewage Treatment Facilities Permanent Ordinance 23-19 to correct various budget lines to defund the account clerk / typist and fund a confidential senior account clerk position.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Rezanetti. Discussion. Seeing
the
none
question,
as the
Mr. President.
question's been called, the clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rezanetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley is absent, Councilmember Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-182 passes. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Friedman for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory resolution 23-95.
Thank you, President Scringy. I ask for unanimous consideration for introductory resolution 23-95, a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept the fiscal year 2023 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant.
Do I have a second? Motioned by Councilwoman Rezanetti, motioned by Councilwoman Freeman, seconded by Councilwoman Rezanetti. Discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scringy. I am always kind of hesitant about legislation like this. I'm sure I've said this on the record before. On the one hand, I like grants because they allow an influx of resources to the city without being a burden on the taxpayers. However, I also am reticent to accept money that would be used for police officer patrols. So I don't know. On the one hand, grants are great. On the other hand, I don't love where this grant is going. So I will not be supporting this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. For any other discussion? Seeing none, is the question called? The question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rezanetti.
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley is absent, Councilmember Friedman,
Nay.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon
Aye.
and President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, 1 nay, Friedman, and 1 absent, Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory resolution 23-95 passes. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Friedman for the purposes of motion regarding introductory resolution 23-97.
Thank you, President Scringy. I ask for your unanimous consideration for introductory resolution 23-97, a resolution authorizing the mayor to extend the agreement with the Binghamton City School District for school resource officers at the high school and middle schools for 2023 and 2024.
Do I have a
Second.
motion by Councilwoman Rezanetti, seconded by Councilman Strawn. Discussion. Councilwoman Freeman, my apologies.
Thank you, President Scringy. I believe that I have voted against this contract every time it's come up. I just haven't, I'm not convinced that school resource officers are effective at keeping our students safer. They are lovely people. In fact, I was at Binghamton High School today for my day job and earlier this week, and they are quite lovely people, but I don't believe that this is an effective use of resources. And in fact, I think the first time this legislation came up, I read in a brief to the record or part of a brief from the ACLU that says that SROs, in fact, are often harmful rather than helpful. So I will not be supporting this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rezanetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley is absent, Councilmember Friedman,
Nay.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, 1 nay, Friedman, and 1 absent, Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory resolution, my apologies, 23-97 passes. Turn it back. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Friedman for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory resolution 23-98.
Thank you, President Scringy. I ask for your unanimous consideration for introductory resolution 23-98, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Greater Binghamton Chamber of Commerce to support marketing, promotions, and tourism in the city for the years 2024 to 2025.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Freeman, seconded by Councilwoman Resonetti. Discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scringy. As this legislation deals with ARPA money for all of the reasons previously stated, I am going to make a motion to hold this over.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion to hold over introductory resolution 23-98 was made by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilman Burns. Introductory resolution 23-98 is held over. Thank you both. Sorry, just documenting. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory resolution 23-99.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory resolution 23-99. Resolution authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with the Binghamton Local Development Corporation for the rehabilitation of 11 Court Street.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Resonetti. Discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scringy. Due to the reasons previously stated, I am also going to make a motion to hold this legislation over.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by my apologies. A motion to hold over introductory resolution 23-99. Motion by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilman Burns. Introductory resolution 23-99 is held over. Thank you both. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory resolution 23-100.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory resolution 23-100. Resolution authorizing the mayor to enter in a parking agreement with the Boscov's Department Store LLC for parking at the Water Street parking garage.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Resonetti. Council discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scringy. Although this does not involve ARPA money directly, it is closely related to the other pieces of legislation that do involve large amounts of ARPA money. So I'm also going to make a motion to hold this one over.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion to hold over, my apologies, introductory resolution 23-100. Motion by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilman Burns. Introductory resolution 23-100 is held over. Thank you both. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion concerning introductory resolution 23-101.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory resolution 23-101. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter agreement with NYHART of Governmental Accounting Services Board number 75 Actuarial Services.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Resonetti. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Resonetti.
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley is absent. Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
And President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes, 1 absent, Riley.
Introductory, thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory resolution 23-101 passes. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory resolution 23-102.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory resolution 23-102. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with Exact Capital to support an affordable housing rehabilitation project.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Resonetti. Council discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scringy. Due to the reasons previously stated, I'm going to make a motion to hold this over.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion to hold over introductory resolution 23-102, motioned by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilman Burns. Introductory resolution 23-102 23-102 is held over. Thank you both. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory resolution 23-103.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory resolution 23-103, a resolution authorizing Visions Federal Credit Union is social on state to conduct a fireworks display on December 31st for the New Year's Eve 2023-2024 at midnight.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Resonetti. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Resonetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley is absent, Councilmember Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes, 1 absent. Riley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory resolution 23-103 passes. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion. Keep in mind, we're going back here now regarding introductory resolution 23-98. When I say going back, I mean going back in the agenda, earlier in the agenda.
96.
96. yeah.
My apologies. Regarding introductory resolution 23-96. My apologies.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory resolution 23-96, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with Greater Opportunities for Broome in Shenango to support affordable and senior housing projects on Muscle Street.
Second.
Councilman Scanlon, just procedurally, I'm going to ask you to, if you would please, to rescind your motion for introductory resolution 23-96. Procedurally, we need to do 170 first because 170 is the funding mechanism.
Okay, yep.
Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-170.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory resolution 23-170, an ordinance to amend the 2023 budget to allocate American Rescue Plan Act funds to support Greater Binghamton or Greater Opportunities for Broome and Shenango.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Resonetti. Council discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scringy. Due to reasons previously stated, I'm going to make a motion to hold this over.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion to hold over introductory ordinance 23-170 was motioned by Councilwoman Friedman and seconded by Councilman Burns. Sorry, just keeping my notes here. Introductory ordinance 23-170 is held over. Given the fact that the funding mechanism for the resolution has been held over, Chair will recognize a motion to hold over introductory resolution 23-98.
Make a motion.
96, my apologies.
I'll make a motion to hold over 23-96.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion to hold over introductory resolution 23-96. Motioned by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Friedman. Introductory resolution 23-96 is held over. Thank you both. That was everything. Excellent. Move on to communication from council members. Chair recognizes Councilman Strong.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize if everyone not feeling great tonight. I'm not did test negative, so or I wouldn't be here. But so I had a few things. I just want to say a couple things. I had a few other things prepared, but I'm gonna keep it short because I just don't want to bore anybody. And I'm not. My voice is breaking down. I just want to thank the people of the old 6th district for trusting me in 2019. I love my district. I love the South Side. I love the city of Binghamton. I really do. I want to thank my colleagues. It's been an honor to serve with you. A lot has changed since 2019 in the whole world, not just the city of Binghamton. And I think we navigated a lot of these things well together. COVID, obviously, among a lot of other things. Didn't always agree on everything, but we agreed on many things. And I respect everyone on this council, and be a big place in kind of my career and my life. And I've been honored to serve with you all and to serve the city of Binghamton. took a beating on multiple occasions, but I believe that, I did what I felt was right for my constituents in the city. And as you can see with the you results, I encourage everybody. I mentioned this before, but to say every vote counts is an understatement. I was disappointed in the turnout for the whole county, quite frankly. These off-year elections are so critically important to everything that we do. And regardless of which way it went or which votes, I think it was 27 point something percent. And that's disappointing and discouraging to me, actually, that barely over a quarter of the people in the county voted at all in this election. I would have liked to have seen that number much higher. I think that a lot of the things we do affect people's daily lives more than, some of the elections that'll happen next year, even though they're much, much higher profile. So, but that being said, the people that came out to vote respect their decision, and I wish the next city council well. And somebody asked me, what if you win in the minority? And I just said, well, I hope we all have what's best in heart for the city of Binghamton. And I hope that we can work together to that end. And I believe that, and I believe that the next city council will do that as well. So once again, it's been a privilege of my life to serve on this council and to serve with you all. And I thank you for that opportunity. And happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I congratulated the incoming city council a couple of meetings ago. And I'd like to congratulate Michael Dundon, who beat me in the election. Longtime East Sider. He'll do well to represent the East Side of Binghamton. So again, congratulations, Michael, and good luck. After 7 years on the Binghamton School Board and 70 years here, I think I've fulfilled my civic duty. So I'm not upset that I'm not moving on next year, but again, good luck with moving on with the new council. I'll end with two things I'm grateful for. I didn't have to listen to Angela O'Reilly drone about her swan song tonight for 20 plus minutes. And the second thing is, I was lectured tonight by Terry Rennia for the last time in my life. I've heard probably 20 or 30 of them. So no more lectures from Terry Rennia. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Rossetti.
Also, I'm prepared, but I'll keep it short. It has been such an incredible 6 years. Well, a gap to be on this body and to do this particular type of work.
Councilwoman, my deepest apologies. The mic couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So I hope you heard the first part.
Yeah, my apologies.
Yeah.
No, please.
So, yeah, and I've only been, I guess, in politics for a short period of time compared to others, but there's been certainly a lot that I've learned in this period of time. And, a lot was good, a lot was bad, a lot was frustrating, a lot was scary, a lot was exciting. And that's what's, I guess, great about all of this. To touch a little bit on the bad, and I feel it's important, especially with a new council coming up. I learned that politics can make some people angry, bitter. People who, for whatever reason, feel like they have this higher morality. People who know better than you or other colleagues, people who have, come from different life paths and have certainly life experience that have presented them in this place that we're at and what we do with the best intentions for the most part. These are people who disagree with you, as they should, because, in politics, it's good to have a nice debate, right? But people who threaten your families, people who sit there and lie and come after you, your livelihood, your well-being, that's not who we are. This is what has left a very bitter taste to many of certainly constituents out here in our community, aside of political differences or opinions, right? And I encourage the new body to not only never allow a council member or anybody to be treated like that, but also to allow for a welcoming environment here in the chambers, these chairs where people with different opinions come in and speak without any fear. I think overall, that's what we all want. Those are just some of the, the yucky stuff to politics. But certainly, I've been in this community for many decades and I've worn different hats, but this has really been an incredibly fulfilling experience. There's something very cool to be able to say, in addition to what I've been doing, my family or business or whatever, over the years, over the decades, and how you contribute. It's been really cool to be able to say, well, I kind of had something to do with this particular project, or that project, whether it's taxes, whether it's supporting our police, whether it's the ice rink, whether it's paving our streets, right? Those are really important things that, I feel very privileged and very honored to have had the opportunity to do that. And I feel very privileged to have worked with good people, my colleagues here. I'm very grateful, very thankful. And I wish nothing but the best for the incoming group, because in the end, it's really about our neighborhoods, our community, right? What's best with all our, tug and pull or arguments or debates. So with that, I'm going to wish everybody a wonderful holiday season. I hope that everybody has nothing but the best in 2024 and beyond. And just remember to be kind. Just because you don't like somebody's politics doesn't mean they're bad, right? And to be a little more inclusive. Change begins right here at home, they say. So it's important that we just continue to remind ourselves of that. And with that, thank you. And I want to say thank you to, first, like I said, to all of you folks here at the table, but to President Scringy, who has been here now for 8 years. And yeah, so you're the most senior here. So I just want to say thank you, and thank you this year for your leadership and everything that you've done. Have a good night.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scringy. I have been both dreading and fantasizing about this day for a long time. I drank a little bit too much coffee before this meeting, so I'm like amped up. I wrote down a bunch of dichotomies of words that I feel like encapsulated this experience. It was both one of the most empowering and disheartening experiences, extremely rewarding and extremely frustrating. It was a pleasure to work with some people here. It was less than stellar to work with others. I think we can, in some ways, be proud of ourselves, and in some ways, we ought to be very disappointed. I want to thank so many people, my constituents for believing in me, people from the Democratic Party, even though I'm not a Democrat anymore. Sorry. Thank you for being here. Shout out to my roommates who I peer pressured into coming to the last meeting. And I am sad that Councilwoman Riley is not here at this last meeting for her to respond, as she was called out directly. I would rather listen to anyone talk for 3 hours, knowing that they have their constituents' needs and wants in mind, rather than listen to silence. That was the most disappointing part. Even like a lot of times, some of my colleagues would ask a question and maybe it sounded sarcastic when I said, thank you for asking. That was genuine. Like, I want to hear what is going on. And it's frustrating when you don't know why people are voting a certain way. And I I looked up to Councilwoman Riley and I found inspiration in her diligence, in her research, in her hard-hitting questions. And she put up with the most crap out of anyone here. And I feel confident in saying that. I can't count the number of times that she was accidentally skipped in council comments. And I think it was an accident, but as she has said once before, there's one thing that markedly differentiates her from everyone else. And she said, I don't want to be the one to point out what it is, but just let that sit there. So, shout out to Councilwoman Riley. I miss her dearly. I wish she was here. It has been an absolute pleasure to serve on city council with her. And good luck to the incoming council. The people of Binghamton have spoken, and congratulations to everyone who ran a race. But I know that the people who were elected, the council members elect, had an unprecedented ground game where they were really knocking on doors and hearing and listening deeply to what constituents had to say and what their concerns are and what has been working and has not been working for them. My district I use the word gerrymandered. I mean, it ended up working out kind of well in some ways, but what the majority of what was my district will now be represented by Councilman-elect Nate Hotchkiss, who I think is going to do a better job than I did. So he is extremely dedicated, organized, passionate, capable, knowledgeable. I can't wait to see particularly what you do on city council as this chapter for me closes and this chapter for you opens. So thank you, everyone. I might even shed a tear. Who knows? I guess that's the last I have to say. Councilmember Friedman signing off.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Burns.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to thank Angela Riley for being our party leader for 4 years. And thank you, Aviva, for
Councilman Burns, my apology. Is your mic on?
yeah, it is. Thank you,
Okay,
Aviva,
fine.
for your
Thank you, sir.
comments.
Sorry, floor is yours.
I want to thank the South Side. I don't really feel like this is the end of anything. I've always been involved in politics, local politics, in one way or another since I was 5 years old, giving out pamphlets on a corner somewhere. So I'm just moving on to the next iteration of wherever that brings me. But walking around town, people are saying, "Oh my God, what's going to happen?" The woke are coming. The woke are coming, and the next. It just brought me to thinking, this next city council that's coming in. When I first was able to vote, Jerry Brown was running for president. My wife was going to college to get her degree in California. So we were living there in California at the time. And I loved Jerry Brown. He was running for president, and I wrote in for him. He wasn't the nominee. I think it was Carter. So, but Jerry Brown, there's a new thing on I think it's on CNN. There's a new documentary on him, and they're calling him the disruptor. And I saw an interview with him and the director of it. I haven't seen it yet, but it brought me back to how much I love this guy, and he was a disruptor. He became the governor of California. They called him Governor Moonbeam, and he said he's not going to live in the mansion. He ended up renting an apartment for $150 a month or something. He didn't want the car and the driver. He got himself a little Ford or a Chevy, and he disrupted the way that politics was done in California. And he ended up being the first governor with a $1 billion surplus at the end of his 4 years. So I believe that change is coming. There is going to be disruption, but when it all settles down, we're going to have a better Binghamton because of what's about to happen. And I wish them all luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes. Oh, me. Sorry, my apologies. 8 years can go by quick. Wow. I want to start off by thanking all the men and women that work in this building that actually make this city tick. DPW, parks, police, fire, code, engineering. We can run down everyone. They really are phenomenal. It has absolutely been an honor to serve with all of you. Councilman Burns, I got to be honest, I agree with you 100%. I think things are just going to be what they are. I am excited that this chapter is coming to a close, right? It's a good thing. That's what this country is founded on. Citizen legislators, right? Come in, try your best. Someone else comes along. And that's it. It's really that simple. I do want to take a moment, and I would like to, on behalf of this entire council, Madam Clerk, Deputy Clerk, Janine, John, this entire part of this building really doesn't move without the both of you. So, you know, I know over the years, as usually happens with positions of this nature, there can at times be turnover, and I am just incredibly impassioned about how the both of you just stepped right up and just filled in, and things were moved forward, and it was without a tick. So I want to publicly thank the both of you for all the work you have both done. We appreciate you. And I also want to thank Corp Council. All the requests for legislation that come forward, whether they're sponsored, whether they're authored, whether they're whatever they are, somebody actually has to write this stuff and make sure that it actually meets the criteria of county and state and federal government, even in many cases. And our clerk's office is also incredibly involved with that as well. So I want to thank you both for everything. I absolutely want to thank the residents of the First District. This has been, without a doubt, one of the greatest honors of my life. I always considered myself very lucky. And, you know, to put this in context, this isn't just how cool Binghamton is, but this is how cool the First District is and the ward is. I had the honor of not just representing 1/7 of the city, but I cannot even begin to tell you how many of my predecessors still live in the district, right? I had the ability to have what on average probably amounts to weekly conversations. Councilman Mott Savage, Councilman Wessler, Councilman Massar, God rest his soul. I miss him. I miss him a lot. But yeah, it's a pretty incredible thing. It's a pretty incredible thing. So I want to thank you all, and Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. So a second. Motion by Councilman Rossetti, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. We are adjourned. As a side note to everyone, I'll follow up by email, probably over say like the next 24 hours or so, just on any final stuff. Oh, I forgot to mention, for all of us, either see the clerk's office or Lori in IT sometime between now and the end of the year to hand in ID cards